So the year is 2024, and I still feel like there are some people out there who still ask me and leave me comments sometimes asking, should you still buy an iPod in 2024? Now, there have been so many iPods that have came out throughout the last, decades or several decades that iPods have been first coming out. But the craziest thing is, Apple basically made a ton of money off iPods, and iPods kind of led into iPhones, and iPhones kind of led into a lot of other products that Apple, made of all time. And the craziest thing is, a lot of Apple was built just on music. And when you take a look at basically all of their whole entire, ecosystem of how much money they make from each platform, music is still like a good part of and a good chunk of how much money they make, but it definitely isn't all of it. But it's so funny how impactful the iPod is, the brand of the iPod, and just how much it's worth. And it's crazy that Apple doesn't do anything with it anymore. But I will tell you, at the core, there really shouldn't be anybody who's buying an iPod anymore. It doesn't really make any sense at all to buy a product like this. And the main reason for this is because you're basically stuck in the situation where a device like an iPod Touch, for example, or even an iPod Video, iPod Nano, iPod Shuffle, any iPod you could basically get your hands on right now, besides being a collector's item, it doesn't really give you any use that most modern budget day phones can't already give you. The last iPod Apple ever made was the iPod Touch 7th generation. And this iPod Touch, first of all, is like outdated with software. It stopped at iOS 15. It has the same chipset, I think, as the iPhone 7. And it's just an old, outdated device in so many different ways. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense to go and pick up a device like this because you're stuck in this weird phase. I feel like you're just getting a device, even if you're getting the most recent iPod Touch, or iPod in general, it still is a pretty outdated device when it comes down to it. But I will tell you, there are still some reasons why you can go ahead or why you should go ahead and buy an iPod of some sort. The only reason I would even recommend people to buy an iPod is if you need to go ahead and have a side device where you want to go ahead and store your music. You could kind of think about it as like an external hard drive in a way. If you don't want to buy like a 512 or 1 terabyte iPhone, you can go ahead and swing for a cheaper type of iPod, like an iPod Touch, for example, and you can use that as an external hard drive. If you don't want to use a computer or something like that, you can back up photos and videos. You can go and back up all your music on it too. So you can kind of keep it just as like a backup storage in a way of all the products that you have on your particular iPhone at this point. So that is kind of an option that you have, but that only suits probably a small minority of people. And I don't even know how many people want to actually go through and like use a device like that side by side with another device. Like, I don't know if you feel comfortable of owning something like an iPod Touch if you want to go and use an iPhone every day. The only other reason I would even recommend people to go and buy an iPod of some sort is if you still want to be engrossed somewhat into the Apple ecosystem. So if you do want to go through and like buy something like an iPod Touch and you want to go and let's say use an Android phone as your everyday device, well, it is kind of nice if you want to still have some iOS ecosystem device set on your device too. Well, you can go and use that device there and use something like an iPhone if you want to side by side to it, or Android side by side to it. So it does give you a little bit more capability there, but even then, it still doesn't really make a ton of sense to go and do something like that either. So I will tell you to kind of answer the question, should you go ahead and buy something like an iPod in 2024? I think for the vast majority of people, it just doesn't make any sense to go and buy a device like this. You are much better off and better off buying devices that are still supported with software that still, give you some capability and some quality. And iPods, besides being a collector's item, I think they're just not really making a lot of sense to go ahead and buy. And that's why I do like devices like the iPod Touches, because they do give you a little bit more capability. But if you're planning on buying an iPod Video, iPod Nano, and you're functionally trying to use it, I probably wouldn't recommend that. But if you're just using it and let's say you just want to use it as like a collector's item or buy it as a collector's item, that might make a little bit more sense for me to recommend to people. So in terms of that kind of covers it up here for the most part. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.